In the depths of winter, when the orchards of the world are bare and the harvest of apples and pears has long since finished, there remains one tree that is only just beginning to offer its gift. It stands stark against the frost, twisting and gnarled, holding on to peculiar russet-colored fruits that hang like heavy, rusted ornaments. If you were to pluck one of these fruits in October or November and bite into it, you would be met with a shocking, mouth-drying astringency, a texture hard as wood, and it tastes so bitter it is virtually inedible. To the modern eye, this fruit appears useless. Even when it softens, it turns brown, mushy, and wrinkled, bearing an uncanny resemblance to something that has thoroughly rotted. Yet, for thousands of years, this transformation was not viewed with disgust, but with anticipation. This strange brown alchemy was the secret to a winter delicacy that tasted of spiced apple butter, cinnamon, wine, and toffee. This is the medlar. It was a favorite of Charlemagne, a staple of the medieval monastery, and a fruit so culturally significant that it appeared in the works of Chaucer and Shakespeare. It was the only fresh fruit available to European peasants in the dead of winter, a critical source of sweetness in a time before refined sugar. And yet, almost completely within the span of the last century, it has vanished from our collective consciousness. We have traded the complex, fermented richness of the medlar for the convenience of the supermarket apple, forgetting a fruit that requires patience, understanding, and a willingness to embrace the darkness of winter. The medlar, scientifically known as Mespilus germanica, is a slow-growing deciduous large shrub or small tree belonging to the Rosaceae family. This places it as a distant cousin to the apple, the pear, the quince, and the hawthorn. But unlike its popular relatives, the medlar has retained a primitive, almost prehistoric character that sets it apart in the orchard. Visually, the tree is striking. It possesses a sprawling, weeping habit with long, dark green leaves that turn a spectacular array of fiery reds and purples in the autumn. The flowers, which appear late in the spring, often escaping the last frosts that damage other fruit crops, are large, solitary, and pure white, resembling wild roses. However, it is the fruit itself that is most distinctive. The fruit is a pome, typically 1 to 2 inches in diameter, with a matte, brownish-green skin that feels like fine sandpaper or suede. Its most identifying feature is the wide, open eye at the bottom, the calyx, surrounded by 5 persistent sepals that give it the appearance of a small crown, or perhaps more crudely, a hollow opening. This unique morphology has earned it many vulgar nicknames throughout history, referencing the open nature of the fruit's base, but it also aids in the fruit's unique ripening process. Unlike almost every other fruit we consume today, the medlar is not eaten when it is ripe in the conventional sense. When the fruit reaches its full size in late autumn, it is hard, acidic, and high in tannins. It is physiologically mature, but culinarily useless. To become edible, the medlar must undergo a process known as bletting. Bletting is a post-harvest maturation process that softens the fruit and alters its chemical composition. It is a period of controlled senescence, aging, where the fruit turns from a hard, pale, greenish-white solid into a soft, dark brown custard. To the uninitiated, a bletted medlar looks exactly like a rotten apple. But the difference between rotting and bletting is the difference between decomposition by external pathogens, example mold and bacteria, and transformation by internal enzymes. When we discuss the medlar, we are discussing a relationship with food that is fundamentally different from our modern instant culture. We are discussing a fruit that demands we wait for the frost, a fruit that forces us to look past an ugly exterior to find sustenance, and a crop that provided vital nutrition during the hungry gap of winter, when food stores were running low. It is a fruit of resilience, patience, and forgotten luxury.
Despite the specific epithet germanica, the medlar is not native to Germany. Its true origins lie in the region of the South Caspian Sea, modern-day Iran, Persia, Turkey, and the Caucasus. It has been growing wild in these regions for millennia, thriving in the warm summers and cold winters of the temperate woodlands. The fruit's journey westward is a testament to its value in the ancient world. It was likely brought to Greece as early as 700 BC. The Greek botanist Theophrastus, writing in the 4th century BC, described the tree in his Inquiry into Plants, noting 3 varieties and their use. From Greece, the fruit traveled to Rome. The Romans, with their sophisticated horticultural techniques and expansive trade networks, fell in love with the medlar. They are responsible for spreading the tree throughout their empire, planting it as far north as Britain and as far west as France. To the Romans, the medlar was more than just food. It was a medicinal curiosity. Roman agricultural writers like Pliny the Elder discussed the medlar in their natural histories, advising on its storage and consumption. However, the true golden age of the medlar began after the fall of Rome, during the Middle Ages. In a time when the spice trade was sporadic and sugar was an astronomically expensive luxury known only to the super-rich, the medlar offered a unique flavor profile that was naturally sweet, spiced, and rich. The tree became a mandatory fixture in the physic gardens of monasteries. Monks valued the fruit for its ability to regulate digestion. The high tannin content of the unbletted fruit was used to treat dysentery and looseness of the bowels, while the bletted fruit was considered a gentle laxative and a nutritious restorative for the elderly and infirm. In the year 800 AD, Charlemagne, the king of the Franks and Holy Roman Emperor, issued the Capitulaire de Villis, a legislative text that listed the plants and trees to be grown on the royal estates. The medlar, Mespilus, was explicitly listed among the essential fruit trees alongside the quince and the fig. This royal decree cemented the medlar's status across Europe. By the Tudor period in England, the medlar was a staple of the high-status banquet. It was often served as the final course, the banquet course, alongside spiced wines, nuts, and cheeses. The consumption of medlars was a social ritual. They would be brought to the table in silver bowls, soft and wrinkled, and diners would scoop out the rich pulp with small spoons or suck it directly from the skin, discarding the large seeds. The fruit was so ubiquitous that it became a standard metaphor in literature for premature aging or moral decay. Chaucer refers to it in the Reeve's Tale, and Shakespeare famously and bawdily references the fruit in Romeo and Juliet and Measure for Measure, playing on the fruit's suggestive shape and its nature of being rotten before it is ripe. Through the 17th and 18th centuries, the medlar remained a common sight in orchards and markets. Varieties were selected and named: the Nottingham medlar, known for its small size but intense flavor, and the Dutch or monster medlar, known for its large, showy fruits. It seemed, for centuries, that the medlar was as permanent a fixture in the Western diet as the apple. If the medlar was so vital for over 2,000 years, how did it disappear so completely that most modern grocery store managers have never even heard the name? The extinction of the medlar from our diet was not caused by a disease or a pest, but by a fundamental shift in how human beings interact with time and aesthetics. The decline began slowly in the 19th century and accelerated rapidly in the 20th. The primary driver was the arrival of cheap imported cane sugar from the New World colonies. For centuries, fruits like medlars and quinces were prized because they provided complex sweetness and could be preserved in honey or grape must. Once refined white sugar became cheap and ubiquitous, the unique vinous sweetness of the medlar became less essential. People could simply buy sweetness. Simultaneously, the agricultural revolution and the rise of commercial fruit breeding began to favor crops that could be harvested early, transported long distances without damage, and stored for months in cold storage without changing texture. The apple and the pear were perfectly commanded by these new industrial requirements. They could be picked hard, stored in low-oxygen environments, and sold months later looking exactly as they did on the tree. The medlar, by contrast, is an industrial nightmare. Its skin is thin and easily torn. It cannot be eaten immediately upon harvest. It requires a waiting period that varies depending on the weather. Most fatally, its perfect eating stage looks functionally identical to a spoiled product. In a 20th century supermarket where uniformity, bright colors, and firm textures are equated with freshness and safety, the medlar had no place. It was aesthetically incorrect. As urbanization moved populations away from rural orchards and into cities, the knowledge of how to handle the fruit was lost. To a city dweller disconnected from the rhythms of the seasons, a box of brown, soft medlars looked like garbage. Without the cultural knowledge of bletting, the understanding that patience yields reward, the fruit became confusing and repulsive. Furthermore, the medlar is difficult to process. The fruit contains 5 hard, stone-like seeds embedded in the pulp. Unlike an apple, which can be sliced and eaten cleanly, the medlar requires work to eat. You must separate the pulp from the seeds in your mouth, or laboriously sieve the pulp for cooking. In the age of convenience, where seedless grapes and easy-peel mandarins reign supreme, the medlar was seen as too much trouble. By the 1950s, commercial planting of medlars had virtually ceased in Europe and the Americas. The trees were ripped out to make room for more profitable apples, or simply left to grow wild in hedgerows. It transitioned from a staple food to a horticultural curiosity, kept alive only by botanical gardens and a handful of stubborn enthusiasts who refused to let the taste of winter vanish.
While the medlar was abandoned for economic and aesthetic reasons, modern science reveals that we left behind a nutritional and chemical powerhouse. The process of bletting, often dismissed as rotting, is actually a complex enzymatic transformation that is rare in the plant kingdom. When a medlar is harvested in late autumn, it is rich in tannins and acids, specifically malic acid. The cell walls are rigid, reinforced by protopectin, which makes the fruit hard. During bletting, enzymes such as pectinase and pectin methylesterase break down the protopectin into soluble pectin. This is what causes the flesh to soften from a hard, apple-like consistency to a soft custard. Simultaneously, the tannins, which cause the dry astringent sensation, are oxidized or bound to other compounds, neutralizing their bitterness. The starch reserves in the fruit are rapidly converted into sugars, fructose and glucose, and the acidity drops. The result is a fruit that has the sugar concentration of a dessert syrup, but retains a complex aromatic profile derived from the remaining organic acids and volatile compounds. Nutritionally, the medlar is impressive. It is exceptionally rich in minerals compared to standard apples. Studies have shown high concentrations of potassium, essential for heart health and blood pressure regulation, calcium and magnesium, vital for bone density and muscle function, iron. Medlars have been historically used as a tonic, and modern analysis confirms significant iron content. Perhaps most importantly, the medlar is a rich source of pectin. Even after bletting, the soluble fiber content is high. Pectin is known to lower blood cholesterol levels, regulate blood sugar, and improve gut health by feeding beneficial bacteria. The medieval monks who prescribed medlars for digestion were scientifically correct. The specific fiber profile of the fruit acts as a gentle regulator for the human digestive tract. The browning of the flesh, while visually unappealing to some, indicates a high presence of phenolic compounds. Research into the antioxidant capacity of Mespilus germanica has found high levels of flavonoids. These compounds act as scavengers of free radicals in the body, reducing oxidative stress. In a world where we are constantly searching for superfoods with high antioxidant values, the medlar has been hiding in plain sight. From an agricultural perspective, the medlar is a model of resilience. It is self-fertile, meaning a single tree will produce fruit. It requires almost no pruning, unlike the high-maintenance apple, which requires precise seasonal cutting to fruit well. It is remarkably pest-resistant. The high tannin content of the leaves and immature fruit deters most browsing animals and insects. It is also cold-hardy.
blooming late enough to avoid the frost that often decimates almond or apricot crops. In an era of climate instability, a tree that produces a reliable, nutrient-dense crop with zero chemical inputs or irrigation is a technology we desperately need to rediscover.
The story of the medlar is not just about a forgotten fruit. It is a parable about what we have sacrificed on the altar of convenience. We traded flavor for appearance, nutrition for shelf life, and seasonal patience for instant gratification. Bringing the medlar back matters because it challenges the homogeneity of our modern food system. It offers a harvest when the land is otherwise dormant. It provides a source of sweetness and nutrition in the depth of winter without requiring energy-intensive shipping from the southern hemisphere. For the home gardener or the small-scale regenerative farmer, the medlar represents an easy win. It is a tree that asks for nothing. No sprays, no complex pruning, no fertilizers, and gives a unique gourmet product in return. It creates a connection to the past, to the tables of medieval feasts and Roman banquets. But most importantly, the medlar teaches us to look deeper. It teaches us that something can look broken, brown, and aged on the outside, yet hold sweetness and vitality on the inside. In a culture obsessed with surface-level perfection, the medlar is a quiet, delicious rebellion. It is time to replant this ancient tree, to wait for the frost, and to relearn the lost art of patience.